Greetings in the AKOMA Isman show, AKOMA House Initiative. Coming to talk about the AKOMA King's rites of passage through a lens that I think many of us are familiar with. So what I want to talk about is adult sons with daddy issues, right? I think that many of us can concede that there's a lot of issues that we adult men have as the byproduct of not having fathers through certain phases of our lives. So first, let me say at the outstart that the baton of manhood is not being passed. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the 90-year-old man needs the 120-year-old man. The 70-year-old man needs the 90-year-old man. The 50-year-old man needs the 70-year-old man. And the 30-year-old man needs the 50-year-old man. And the 15-year-old needs the 30-year-old to be present, to be purposeful, to be productive, to be passionate, to be present in their lives, to create a continuum of manhood, right? So the manhood baton is not being passed from generation to generation. We are hard pressed to find a group of 120-year-old men passing on wisdom to 90-year-old men who are passing on wisdom to 70-year-old men, who are passing on wisdom to 50, who are passing to the 30-year-olds, who are passing to the 15-year-olds. And as a result, as a people, because the men are certainly leading in the social sphere, as a people, we are hurting. So my question to any man under the sound of my voice is, did you grow up with your father? And if you did grow up with your father, what was his strengths? What was his strong points? What was his weaknesses, right? We have to be clear that as men, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. Baba Haru, who is one of my jegnas, one of my many father figures, taught me that you should look at your father and look at anything that is missing in your father and seek to correct that in yourself. A very profound direction to give young men. I'm 53 now. At the time when he gave us that, I was 25, right? And really understood it. But what we're looking at is that the baton of manhood isn't being passed from generation to generation. And what are some of the effects of that? Let's talk about that, because it's showing up in all of our relationships, specifically our relationships with women, but most importantly, our relationship with ourselves and our egos, right? So as a clinical therapist, I want to talk about the ego in a second. But first, I want to say this. What is the two daddy issues that we all have? We have one or two daddy issues, or three, I would say. It's either a neglect issue, an abuse issue, or a presence issue. So either, starting out the bat, we're one of the 7 out of 10 men who did not have a father, or if he was present, he was either neglectful or abusive. So that's when we say daddy issues, that's what we're referring to. So I want to be clear on that. As a therapist, I want to say what I mean when I want to explain what I mean when I'm saying that there are adult sons all over the world within the Black community that have daddy issues. Now, I want to say at the outstart, there's nothing inherently wrong with Black fathers. They are subject to a system that has them being the number one target in the world. So they are systemically disenfranchised. They are systematically um, disempowered, and as a result, their children and everybody else who flows in under the influence, in the sphere of their influence, is affected, right? So so you have a lot of different types of neglect and abuse, but let me just say at the outstart, let's start with presence. So are you a man who grew up with your father? If you're a man and you grew up with your father, type in a 1. If you're a man and you didn't grow up with your father, type in a 2. And I'm just looking to see, because 7 out of 10 of us statistically in this time, and I'm saying this time in the last 25, 30 years, it is evolving to 7 out of 10 of us are growing up without our fathers. I would be a person who says I did grow up with my father. But interestingly for me, my father, who I was very close to, and I see my cousin here, I know he grew up with his father and he was very close to him. Our fathers passed away at very young ages of our lives. So, my father passed away when I was 20 years old and he was only 45, right? I have outlived my father at this point by 8 years, right? So I'm 53. My father never made it to that age. Psychologically, that's devastating to me. That's destabilizing to me. That is scary. There isn't a way to say it otherwise. I remember at a time when my cousin and I used to talk, as we began to approach the ages that our fathers passed, we had 1 or 2 thoughts like, wow, are we going to make it to the age that they made it to? And or we used to say, who do we become once we surpass where they got? Because one of the things that the father represents for us is that he represents a model of stability. He represents a model of behavior. He represents a model of how we should proceed throughout the course of manhood. When we don't have this, it's devastating. And I'm saying specifically the father, because I made it a purpose in my life that once my father died, I went to find men who would represent black manhood to me, because I was afraid and I was traumatized by the loss of my father at such a young age in his life and such a young stage in my life. And especially when I was a year away from what we call legal manhood, right? I was about to turn 21 and my father passed away unexpectedly. I had just been with him a few weeks before, and then I got a call, hey, he might not make it through the night. And my response was, make what through the night? At that time, I wasn't living with him. I was living with my mother. They separated when I was 17. And so, but I was close with my father. And when my mom told me that, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what do you mean? He might not make it. Make what? I was just talking to him we were standing on the street and I was talking to him. And so my other question I want to ask as I get into this briefly is, did you as a man put a 1 in the chat if you feel like you got or are getting everything you need from your father? And I want to say, as a clinical therapist, I want to say as a man, I did not get everything that I need from my father, because many of the needs that I have are new. They're because I'm 50 years old, and I will have needs when I'm 60 years old. And in my mind, I would say, yeah, okay, in my possessive mind, you can start getting ready to check out when you're 80, but not 100, not 100%. And now I always knew that when we got to this age, we would see more centenarians, and my dad was highly intelligent. And I was like, I expect him to live past 100, So I had these ideas in my mind. But 20, it was like a bus hitting the psychology of my life. And I literally was numb for 2 years. No relationships, no sex for 2 years, no anything. I was in a state of awe when my father passed. And so I'm saying this to say, when I look around and I look at our beautiful sisters, right? And then I look at the beautiful black men, I see that the baton of manhood isn't being passed. Even those of us that have our fathers, a lot of times by late 20s, you out here on your own. You know what I mean? And so as a result of that, we are devastated. Now, I'm going to tell you as a clinical therapist, especially those that work in relationships, women have these lists and they have all these things. I'm going to tell you a man that you should run like hell from. A man who does not have a good model of manhood, and not one or not three, but multiple. Because no man is no man by himself can represent manhood in totality. Men, as we age, especially in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, we need a group of men. Men who do not have this are dangerous to themselves and each other. They are extremely dangerous. Now, are they good-hearted men? Yes. I don't know of a black man who's not a good man in his nature. But many of us, I don't have to tell you, have been turned inside out and upside down from our original nature. And we have become something that is very unnatural to us and our people. And it's manifesting devastatingly. So our fathers represent our moral, ethical standing. This is one of the places where I see it the most. We don't know what our moral, ethical standing is. We don't know if we're coming or going. We don't know what's right or wrong. And more importantly, we don't know how to deliver and execute what's right and wrong. We are lost as a result of not having fathers. The other thing where me, myself, and other people I found about 6 men that were Jegna, or what you would commonly call a mentor, although that's a word that black people don't understand, has everything to do with pedophilia. Look up the term mentor. It means that a man trades his boy child to another man for sexual favors because the man has a skill. So if like a man is a carpenter and you want your son to be a carpenter, you give him to a man. In Greek culture, you would give him to a man for sexual flavor, and that man is called a mentor. So, I know a lot of us are into mentorship and all of that. We say that, hundreds of thousands of us, probably millions of us say that word. But like a lot of other words, we have no idea where these words come from. And we don't care. We don't care. But this is what I'm talking about morally. We don't stand on anything because we don't have what we call the SMDH. And that doesn't stand for shaking my damn head, as we say. It stands for sharing, modeling, demonstrating, and then helping. This is what we lose when we actually lose a father. Because I had 6 men that stepped in, I could have had 60. But the hole that was left from my father passing, that when I was 20 years old, is still present. And guess what? There isn't a man on earth that could fill that hole. Not because my father was so impeccable that no group of men together can't fill his skill. I've dealt with men that was on my father's level and far beyond in many areas. My father was highly educated, college educated, world travel, military, battle tested, state police, was the job that he had. He wasn't an officer on the field, but he was an officer, but he wasn't in the field. He was a telecommunications officer in the office, right? Dealing with telecommunications, dispatching officers to other crime scenes and stuff. And he might have been out there in them cruisers a couple of times, but he wasn't that dude, right? That wasn't his thing. So, by my, in my interaction with him, in my life with him, many beautiful experiences. But there is a psychological maturation process that happens for men just in the first 49 years of life, 0 to 7, infancy, characterized by dependency, 7 to 14, childhood, characterized by adventure, 14 to 21, passion, characterized by pubescence, 21 to 28, metabolic maturity, characterized by bodily coalescence, 28 to 35, emotional maturity, characterized by our ability to withstand emotional experiences, processes, and cyclical, abstract, and systematic emotional impact. 35 to 42, mental maturity, characterized by linear, practical steps of mental understanding, and our abstract feminine mind. That's where we say coming out of left field and all of that stuff with the abstract mind. And then 42 to 49 is the spiritual maturity, manifested by the symbols. So, you see some of the Adinkra symbols behind me, but when you get to that age, you talk in symbols. You say, "How you doing, Mr. Johnny?" "Oh, the sun is shining, the birds is chirping, life is great." You know what I mean? This is the symbolic talk, because nature is the language of symbolism, right? But symbolism is the communication system of spirit. And so when you reach this level, you need men guiding you, right? You need your daddy guiding you. And men who don't have daddy, or they have daddy, but he's neglectful or absent emotionally, psychologically, or abusive. And one of the greatest abuses is neglect, because when you are present but not here, the psychological damage is devastating. And so what starts to happen is, if you understand the community of self, and if you don't, read that legendary book by Naeem Akbar, preeminent psychologist, black psychologist, where he talks about the different members of the community of self that are neighbors or members of this community. And he goes through the passions, the reason, the emotions, and other things. But at one point, he begins to talk about the ego. And you know what? The ego gets a bad rap, because the function of the ego is to protect, right? So when you see somebody talking from their ego, 100% they are threatened in some kind of way. Now, think about that. Look at how many men walk around demonstrating what we would call a false ego. They are what we call egomaniacs, or they are leading with their ego. So like if I come in the door and say, "Listen, yo, I'm Mansho Edu. I ain't trying to hear that. And if a joker mess with me, they better know I'm not the one. Don't be playing with Mansho today." Like, you hear people come in with this kind of stuff. When you hear that, what you're essentially listening to is the ego is the community member of self that is stepping up, because the ego's function is to say, "I'm not the one. Don't be playing with me. I'm not the one," right? This is what the ego does. Do you know how many men that I meet that lead with their ego? But why is this such a phenomenon? I'm going to tell you why. You don't have to have an ego in the presence of your father as you're developing. Why? Because psychologically, the man who represents protection, if he is well balanced and present in your life, you don't feel that you have to fight it. Let me give you a practical example in today's culture that we see in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. God is everybody's daddy. And what do we say? "This ain't my battle. This my father's battle." Right or wrong? Talk black to me if you understand what I'm saying. Put a 1 or put a symbol if you understand what I'm saying. Now, God is not actually saying to you, "Everything is my battle." You're saying that because in your ego, you're looking at a world that is beyond what you believe is your present capability. So this has to be somebody else's war. But why would you be in it if you don't have a responsibility to do something? So that's a whole nother thing. I don't want to get on that soapbox, but I'm saying this is a practical example of the impact that we have as a collective group with fathers being missing. Now let me deal with this that everybody wants to hear me talk about, and I get calls all week, every week about this from women and men. The impact of the absence of father in intimate relationship. When I'm telling you it's devastating, I cannot put it in enough words. It is devastating to be in a relationship with a man who has not watched the man who brought him into the world treat his mother or some other woman with a deep level of love, respect, nurturing, etc. It is devastating. Everything that he is doing in the absence of this demonstration, he's making up. Everything that he's doing, he's making it up. And I don't care if he had a stepfather or whatever. I'm a clinical therapist, and I'm telling you something. I work with several adopted people. I work with people who, everybody, including myself. The reason I am in this work is because of the devastation that I experienced. So I'm not sitting back on some hump saying that I understand something that other people don't understand. I am a product of what I'm talking about. When you don't have your father and you're moving from 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21, 21 to 28, 28 to 35, 35 to 42, 42 to 49, and beyond, all the way up to 70. Because in our ancient cultures, you're not even an adult till you're 70 years old. When you don't have, as I said at the outstart, a 120-year-old man passing the baton to a 90-year-old man, passing the baton to a 70-year-old man, passing the baton to a 50-year-old man, it's devastating us as a group. And I'm going to tell you, the people who bear the brunt of it is the women and children, because you have emotionally underdeveloped, immoral, unethical men who are stronger, more virile, and more dangerous than women and children running the world. Look at it. Look at it. Tell me what I'm telling you is incorrect. Look at it. We're violent. We're egomaniacs. We're not bad people. Now I'm talking about black men. These other men, a lot of them is bad by nature. It is what it is. But I'm talking about us as a group. Our nature is in the reflection of God, but we've been nurtured into something else. And who is it that nurtures men? Dad. That's why in this Western culture, we only acknowledge the man of God. And so many women are under the vice of men. They just accept, man, God, God got to be a man. But this is antithetical to African thought, because we are the only spiritual systems that have God as a mother-father God. We don't see, I'm talking about classical Africans and indigenous before Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, or Abrahamic religions took over the world by force, right? Before that happened, all of the gods are feminine, masculine. And in that order, they're not masculine, feminine, they're feminine, masculine, because it's the womb of the universe that births the stars, not the stars. We don't study astrology, which is a masculine science. We study cosmogony, which is the womb cosmos and the stars. So we study where the star came from and the star itself, right? So that's the woman and the man. So we always say mother, father, God. But I'm digressing and getting to the point that emotionally, psychologically, morally, in relationship, in relationally, we are dysfunctional because we don't have the SMDH. We don't have our daddy sharing We don't have, which is giving us information. We don't have him modeling, which is doing things the right way at the right time for the right reason. We don't have the demonstration, which is the explanation of step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because sometimes you see the modeling, but you don't understand the steps. And that's why you have to be demonstrated. Like you could watch your parents cook something as a child, but then when you get older, you need the recipe. So seeing them cook is you watching them, that's modeling them. But having a recipe is the demonstration of, okay, now it's 1/4 cups of vanilla or whatever it is we making, right? So it's the same with manhood. And then the H in the SMDH is helping. You begin to go out and execute what you saw. There has to be a man who loves you, older than you, to help you with that process. When we don't have that, women, y'all are in trouble. Children, y'all are in trouble. When black men don't have that. Now, our enemies are making sure that we don't have that because nobody fathers more than black men. Statistically, we see that. So what has happened to us? We've been systemically disenfranchised and destroyed. And so something has to replace manhood. It has to replace the baton. And I'm telling you all that what it is, regardless of if you're 70 or 50 or 30 or 15, it has to be the process of manhood refining that we call a rites of passage. It's the only thing that will do it. Left to your own devices, your ego will delude you. When we talk about women and their vanity, it is their vanity is the source of their delusion. If they cute, if they butt fat, or somebody giving them a little bit of attention, that's vanity. That will become the source of their delusions. And they got thousands of delusions. Just talk to them. A lot of them are delusional, right? But men, we are very delusional as well. And the thing that makes us delusional is our ego. We are able to move through the world with a certain level of security, with a certain level of intention and purpose, even if it's destructive or, dysfunctional. We basically live by the ethos of like, who gonna check me, right? On a small level, we might not thump through the world like that, especially around white men, because their threat is that they can kill you, right? And I don't even know if we can say that anymore on social work. And like I see people saying unalive. Well, just take my shit down. I'm saying kill. I'm not saying unalive. That sounds stupid, right? So, you can be killed. So you don't thump around white men because they're insanely violent in the world on a global scale, not an individual scale, but on a mass scale. So for them, guess who you leave that to? Your daddy. Whoever you call him. Whatever spiritual, that's for dad. I'm down here with the little ones. No matter how old I am, my work is with the little people, and I'm going to do something with them. And this process is destroying our families. We are the latest group of men to marry. We're marrying. A lot of us don't even get married. In which this is, in every civilized culture, you can't be a man and be unmarried. Are y'all aware of that? Black people under the sound of my voice, are you aware that in most civilized countries in the world, you can't claim manhood and you're unmarried? You can't claim manhood if you don't have a purpose that's greater than you that you're giving to your group. You can't claim manhood if you can't articulate at a moment's notice what the principles of your life that you stand on morally and ethically. And you can't be a man with the apathetic attitude that we see pervasive among our men. You have to be a man of passion. So you have to be a man of purpose, principle, and passion. Without that, you can't claim manhood anywhere amongst civilized people. Here, you could just say I'm a man. Because what? Who going to tell me I ain't a man? And whoever do, I might knock them upside their head. That's your ego. And what? Who can't say I'm a man? Some woman who I can aggress upon sexually, even though, technically speaking, she's sexually superior. She is dealing with a muscle as her sexual organ. You're dealing with a flappy piece of skin. Read Dr. Africa's book and many others who have written way better than I ever could on the subject. It's called, he has a chapter called, what is it called? It's called Men, the Sexual Aggressor Myth. It's a myth that we're sexually aggressive. And guess what? Because we feel that ego and that sense of deep insecurity, guess what we try to do to the nana, to the coochie? Guess what we do? We try to kill it. Why are we doing that? Because it's superior. And so our psychology is, I got to destroy it. So we not trying to elevate it and bring it to a higher level. And what I think is funny, the more we try to quote unquote kill it, the woman just brings life out of it. Here, let me take this little water that you spit up in here, and let me give you like 5, 6 babies that look just like you, so you can drive them crazy. You know what I mean? And so it's an irony in it. Am I saying that women are superior to men? Absolutely not. So some of y'all corny dudes, don't get out there saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the sexual organ of a woman is superior to the sexual organ of a man. It is a scientific fact. Now you could take it or leave it alone, but all you got to do is a cursory glance and you'll see what I'm saying. The vagina is a muscle. The penis is like the earlobe. It's not, it just fills with blood. That's the only way it's going to get hard. And when the blood courses out and the seminal fluid and all of that, now you're in refraction time. You got to wait until it can fill up. A woman, although I don't advocate it, because she has a muscle like you do on your bicep, it can expand and expand and contract all day. She could have sex all day. You can't, because vaginally and penally, she is superior. But we are projecting an inferiority on it. So we talk, and brothers, y'all know, and a lot of y'all sisters that's mature enough and been around enough, you know, we talk about warfare with the coochie. I killed it. I'm trying to kill it. I'm trying to beat it up. All of these things. Y'all know this is true. So don't be acting like I'm saying something you don't know. You know it's true. And you know that it's true, but it's false that we're saying it. You ain't never killing it. I watched a 10-pound baby come out of my wife. Like, I'm not killing nothing, right? But I have said it. You know what I mean? Because this is what the ego taught me, and this is the training that I got from other men who are just as lost in disconnected as I was. And so it is what it is. You know, I'm not saying that black women got all their thing together by a long shot. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I am saying is the baton of manhood isn't being passed. And as a consequence of that, you know, I can name off the top of my head about 30 people that I know that are approaching 50 that have never been married. And about 75% of them they may have had thoughts about it, but they feel no pressure to do it. And if they feel some pressure, their ego will step up and say, hey, these women are crazy or whatever. But we want respect. We want submission. We want a whole lot of things from our women and other people. Well, let me just tell you something that I know you know, no matter how much you try to deny it. Men around the world do not respect black men because we can't control our women. And I don't mean that in a inequitable way, that like control them, like we can't give them no. Any men on earth who can't control their women do not get respect. Black men, do we control women? Our women. Put a 1 in the chat if you think that we control our women. Otherwise, put a 2 in the chat. We do not control black women. They doing whatever they want to do. and they'll tell you that. They'll absolutely tell you that. You can't control me. I'm doing whatever I want. You know what I mean? Like, and many of them will argue, I don't want to be under somebody's control, but protection is control. Provision is control. You can't protect something you can't control. And control is not a bad word, because guess what? Guess what we all are looking for in our social strata? Self what? Control. So if it's bad, why are you looking for it? It's not a bad thing. We so damaged that when you say words that have real meaning, we shudder from that. But then we'll all be out here parroting something like mentor, like I said, that is a psychotic term that as long as enough other psychotic people say it, you'll never let it go. You'll look it up. I just talked to you about the word nice. Like 25 people inboxed me. I never knew that this would this word mean, and it's crazy. And then in closing, they said, man, the video was really nice. We gone. But we'll stay gone because as long as enough of us are gone, we'll embrace it. Which proves to me, my final point is that we're communal people. We move together. Black men have normalized the dysfunction that we're in because everywhere we look, we see it in each other. That's it. Now, black women is halfway tired of it, so they got 1 foot out the door, and they got to, because 7 out of 10 of them is not in relationships. So they gotta deal with it. They don't have to accept it, but they gotta deal with it. And, some men say, well, yeah, they going out there and they mating with other men. Well, black women, despite the situation they're in, still don't mate outside their race like black men do. Black men mate outside of their race at a 13%, and they mate outside their race more than all the other men combined. And what we see, the black men who mate outside their race are the black men who feel like they're doing better than most. Let me tell you what that speaks to: a low self-esteem. Because if you are the parent people of humanity and you're the people who invented marriage and brought it to the world and all of these things, when you've devolved to the point that you're saying, when I make it, like Kanye said back in the day, and then he lived it out, when you get on, you leave your ass for a white girl. When you do that, what you're saying is, now that I've risen, I can rise to a white girl, some halfway light-skinned exotic looking girl, or something that is other than what the majority of us look like phenotypically. That means, in terms of self-esteem, you're dealing with something. Now, I'm not bashing somebody who got a light-skinned wife or anything. I got a light-skinned wife. So I'm not, and I'm not with her because she's light-skinned. I'm with her because she's highly intelligent. You know what I mean? But that aside, the point that I'm making, y'all, is it's a lot of men out here with daddy issues. And our women and our children are not going to have peace until we're able to address the daddy issues. Now, here's the thing, women and children, y'all can't address it. A group of men has to address it. And so what do? Do you know historically, so I'm offering rites of passage as a solution. Do you know historically that in order for men to go through rites of passage, I hear a lot of people talking about Will and Jada. I don't even get into that celebrity shit. Like, it's ridiculous. Don't ever talk to us about celebrity couples. Don't inbox us, none of that stuff. We don't even want to talk about that. And we deal with some of these people as clients. Don't ever inbox me some celebrity shit. I mean that. I might unfriend you if you say, look what Will and Jada. I don't want to hear that. But this is what I'm saying about them, right? When Will and Jada was making the Karate Kid movie, they were on a promotional campaign, and Jada was saying that I absolutely understand why the women could not be involved in the rites of passage in ancient Africa. You could go back and check this interview if you care to check it. They were on Oprah. They were a lot of people, but I caught it when they were on Oprah. And she said in African culture, for the boys to become men, they had to be separated from their mothers, right? But I took it a step further because Naeem Akbar taught me in like 91 that in order for the boy to become a man, to move from malehood, boyhood to manhood, and they are very distinctive things, and they have nothing to do with turning 18 or 21. There's a psychological distinction. A male is a biological entity, so you can have a male roach, a male dog, a male anything, right? A male is a biological entity. A boy is something totally different, and a man is something totally different, and we're going to deal with that in this rites of passage. But for the boy to enter into manhood rights, what would happen is they wouldn't say, oh, you 13 or whatever, it's time for your basic rights. They would come in the middle of the night dressed in war paint, and they would snatch the boy from his mother and father. Now, the mother and father would be aware of that this is going to happen. The boys would not know it because they don't have a reference for becoming men until they do it. So they don't know how the rites of passage introduction is, but the way it would go, the men would come into the village, and there would be a multitude of men. They would come in the home, tie up your father, and then subdue your mother gently. They're not beating her up or anything, but subdue her down and take you. The whole time the mom and dad is screaming, don't take my child, don't take my boy, don't take our son from us, whatever. But they are a part of the understanding. Then the men cover your head, a group of men take you, and they take you away. You travel some distance, unfamiliar directions, there's disorientation, you don't know where you are, and when you come to yourself and they take this bag off of your head, all of these strong men that took you, you see that you are in community with other boys that are your age, maybe 12 up to 20 of them. Why? Well, the reason you're in group, well, I'll get to the first point first. The reason they took you from your parents in this dramatic way, because psychologically, for you to become a functional man, the umbilical cord of your mother and father has to be cut. And if you allowed people to do it on their own, they would take way too long, as what we're seeing now. You have 40-year-old men, 50-year-old men that are having a failure to launch. And this is devastating to us as a group when the majority of us are not making it to 68. If you are 50 years old and you have failed to launch into the responsibility of the group and the functionality of the group, whenever you do decide to take on that responsibility, it is at the end of your life. And I'm telling you what I see as a therapist. I'm telling you what I see having married people. I'm telling you what I see all around me. I ask men this all the time. Men under the sound of my voice, put a 1 in the chat if you know 10 men in your life that are over 65. Put a 1 in the chat. You can name them. You got their phone number. You interact with them on a regular basis. I'm not talking about somebody you just see at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or something like that. And I know them men of that age, they ain't going to Starbucks. They probably going to Dunkin' Donuts though. They might be going to Dunkin' Donuts, but they don't go to Starbucks. You know, they might go to McDonald's and get a coffee or a tea, something like that. But those kind of brothers, they don't go. In my town in PA, I found a group of men that meet at a Burger King in Langhorne, right? And I checked these men out. I used to run by there every once in a while. And I found that like out of 11 of them, 5 of them are black, and they were men that gathered, but they were all over 70 years old. And I went up to them a couple of times, And I introduced myself and I said, hey, listen to the brothers, like, I want to talk to y'all, man. Like, how do y'all know each other and, whatever. And they were war veterans. And this was something that they came together and did. And I was like, what does this represent for you? And it was the only group of men that can understand us. Well, you know what I see, brothers? Men are lonely. And this is something that I don't know if women understand. Men are lonely, right? I'm telling you, I deal with couples in relationships and families, and I know what people are talking about. Men are very alone. They're psychologically desperate. And they don't have the SMDH. They don't have the sharing. They don't have the modeling. They don't have the demonstration. They don't have the help. So they are winging it. Or they're conferring with other men who don't know. They're trying to figure it out. And we're saying things like we say with all things. Well, it's not like this comes with a handbook. Black people, stop saying raising children doesn't come with a handbook. Stop saying being in a relationship doesn't come with a handbook. Stop saying being a woman doesn't come with a handbook. Stop saying being a man doesn't come with a handbook, because it absolutely comes with the handbook. The handbook is called your culture. Only a group of people who don't have their culture says such nonsense. If you talk to any other people about raising children, about marrying, about becoming a man, about becoming a woman, about divorcing, blended families, all of the things that we deal with, death, they will tell you, well, in my culture, ... because they know that it's culture that informs the journey of your life. We running around here in mass ignorance talking about, well, it's not like it comes with a handbook. It absolutely does. Manhood comes with a handbook. It's called your culture. And our ancestors developed a system that will help you define and refine manhood over and over and over and over and over again through the phases of your life. Because let me tell you something. When I hear men say, oh, I did a rites of passage when I was 14, my G, you don't even understand a rites of passage. That's like saying I'm fit because I worked out when I was 12. Or I'm financially secure because I had my first job at Burger King. Or whatever. Manhood is continuous. And although women have a real problem, black women, one thing that they have that we don't have, they have the baton of womanhood being passed. You can go into any black family and see, look, these videos are viral all around here. Did you see this video with this like 6 generations of women in one family? They would say, hi. The girl says, hi mom. And then the next one comes out, hi mom. And then the next one comes out, hi mom. And they go 6 generations. You will never see a video like that of black men in this current state that we're in. You'll see it again soon one day, but you will never see some organic thing like that because we don't have that. And black men are so turned inside out, they don't even have the value system to understand that we need it. So, you got a little correction officer job or something. You made a couple $100,000. You got a decent home. You could beat up on your wife, have about 6 affairs throughout the marriage, and be emotionally detached in every way possible. And then say the war is God's and Big Daddy. I can't deal with it. It's God's. You have no moral compass. You have no direction. And when you look around, you ain't in jail. You ain't selling drugs or stuff like that. So you compare yourself to the worst of the worst. This is what we do in relationships. This is what we do all the time. We say, me and Nawasha ask a couple, so how are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10? Rank yourself. And everybody says they're great, but they're dysfunctional and they come in us. We're all dysfunctional because what makes us dysfunctional is we don't have our culture, right? And so when you don't have your culture, know for a surety you're dysfunctional. Do you know, black people, the reason we're not in relationships, the reason we're not all of these things is because we don't have a handbook. We are the group of people, when everybody says, in my culture, you know what we say? I see my dear sister Medina there, who's also an incredible therapist. You know what we say, Medina? My opinion is that's arrogance. That's even more, when you go another depth psychologically, Medina, that's ego. What is the function of the ego? To protect the insecurity. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to be. Nobody is passing that baton on a group level, so we defer to what? Our opinion, which is decoded as what? My belief system, which is originated by what? The same thing all of our belief system is originated by, our own dysfunction. That's what it is. And so when we're talking about men, I'm telling y'all men, as a therapist, I'm telling you as a black man who is 53 years old, who misses my daddy, who died at 20 years old. We need a process of manhood, y'all. I don't care that you make six figures. I make six figures. It ain't no money. I'm in debt. I got 6 figures of college debt. So it's not that. It's not that you could do 100 push-ups or pull-ups, or that you could sling your magic D around to a bunch of women that are sexually superior anyway. It's not those things. It's the emotional, psychological presence, emotional fitness demonstrated, and social responsibility that we can't even measure because we don't have models of it. It's just that I'm not doing bad as him over there, so I must be doing good. But let me tell you this, you're going to always be lacking if the way you vet yourself and qualify yourself is by comparing yourself to the worst of the worst. Let me see you compare yourself to the best of the best. Who's the best of the best in terms of men that you could think of through the history of time of your life or our history, period? Who are those men? Many of us would say Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and men like that. When you compare to him, how do you stack up? Don't tell me. And these men died in their 30s. And here we are in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. We cannot maintain a 20-year relationship. And look around. Check the world globally. We're the only group of men like that. We're the only group of men, black men in the Western world are the only group of men we've been married 23 years. And people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, how do you do it? We're just getting to know each other. What do you mean? I purposely went out and found couples that have been married 40 years because I'm like, we're babies in this. We need help. Even though we're therapists, even though we work in relationships, I don't feel some high level of accomplishment. I'm looking to move to the next level. So I have my eyes on the men who've been able to do it for 40 years and 50 years. And guess what? I got to look hard for them. Because everybody who gets right around 30 plus years, they dying because of the psychological stress. We are dying without question because of the psychological stress that we're in. And we haven't developed a way to deal with the emotional stress that we're carrying. And so what we do, the ego show up. Hey man, at least I'm here taking care of my kids. I think, who was it? Chris Rock had that joke. We act like that's something great. Like everybody takes care of their kids. Like these few people that don't take care of their kids, because it's only a few of them, they're disenfranchised and they're systematically destroyed. But we can't use them as the bar for us doing great. Oh, at least I'm taking care of my kids. Like that's okay. That's like saying, okay, so you, okay, you made these kids and you taking care of them, and what? Like, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? So we have to understand, men, that anciently our ancestors said, in order for us to start to construct the man's psychology in a way that he would dig deep into himself and extract the things that God supplanted in him, we have to cut this umbilical cord. So they would take you from your parents violently, take you off to the village, and you might be away for anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, When you come back upon re-entry into the village, your parents would pretend not to know you. Now they know that you're coming. They know the young men have finished their rites of passage, and they don't complete until they all complete. But when they come back, you would get a new name, because every time we do something new in African culture, we get a new name. And we're still doing that to this day. You know, your parents name you. Then they usually give you your first nickname. Then as you grow up, your siblings give you another name. Then when you start playing sports or you start interacting, they give you a name. Then when you go to another level and you find your first love, they give you another name. Then when you really get into work or relationship, you get a characteristic name. And this is African culture. We do this today still. So when somebody would say, hey, where Medina at? Oh, we're Moochie. Hey, Moo. And then your man might say, hey, Mocha. These all the same woman. This all the same man, because we add on names like that. But when you would come back to the village, you would have to be reintroduced to your parents as the person who left has now come back as this person. And now you don't now come under your parents' rule anymore. You adjoin under their guidance. And so you're given your own, you're given a trade specificity. You're given physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual education. And now you have to test it. You have to get a wife. And then you have to be productive in the group. If we measure men by that, 7 out of 10 of us are not men. And I don't care how many cars you got. I don't care how many hundreds of thousands of dollars you got. I don't care any of that. And I don't care if you these dudes who say I'm married and me and my wife and my children, we worried about our business, whatever. That's like in the Bible, the man with the 10 talents. You're evil because you are not an island and you were not given the right with the God-given skills that you have to close your door off from the rest of the world that you've been placed in. You are supposed to be a man of purpose. You are supposed to be a man of principle and then a man of passion in the world. And you're supposed to be a provider, a protector, and a prophesier of truth and the future based on the principles that you live by. If we measure men by that, oh boy, a lot of us need daddy. A lot of us are men who are outside of that process. And then the final thing I want to say before I tell y'all about AKOMA King, you had to do this process in a group. Why? Because the group psychology is the most profound, transformative psychology. Now, you see my sister here is a therapist. She will tell you individual counseling does deep corrective work, but you can't verify change has happened until you apply it in a group dynamic. So most people have groups. And you will hear people say, as therapists, Medina will know for sure, you will hear people say, I really got deep insight from the individual sessions. And it was when I got into the group dynamic that I was able to see myself through others, or I was seeing how far I am, above others, or how far I have to go. So when you come in a group dynamic, you see where you are, you see where you've been, and somebody represents where you want to go. This is the same in manhood. We can't even confer manhood alone. So you don't just need your dad. You need a group of men to usher you from malehood into boyhood and then to the transition of manhood. And without that, we are sorely devastated. And so what we use as a insecurity and a psychological coping mechanism is the ego. And for sure, men will say the most immature thing. Listen, my bills is paid. Bro, so the fuck what? That means nothing in the world of manhood. So your children didn't go to jail. Great for you. But these ones that did go to jail is waiting to bust them upside their head. So what you gonna do about that? So, your house is paid off. Great. What about the 1,000 of other men that ain't have, and check this out, junior man, who's your house paid off to? How about that? So the mere fact that you can't really own anything while you're being oppressed is the psychological damage that's happening. So I'm saying the daddy issue in closing is presence, whether you're there or not. Then it's abuse, the mistreatment, the willful mistreatment, or a lot of dads are just abusive because they don't have emotional skill sets, and they don't have skill sets because of the trauma of their life. So we forgive them, as Baba Haru said. Look at your father, assess him, and correct in yourself everything that you think is wrong with him. Excuse me, I was eating pretzels earlier. I'm spitting up pretzels. But correct what you think is wrong with him. Whatever you think is wrong with your dad, correct it in yourself, and then show your peers how to correct it in themselves. And if a group of us do that, in one generation, we'll address some of the manhood. But guess what? We can't test it with each other. Guess who we got to test it with? Our women. Because they're unlike us. Although they are our complement, their psychology is very different. And I don't have to tell any women or any men that men and women are not alike. We all know that because we deal with each other, right? So we know, even though we're complements like a lock and key and we complete, we're not opposites who oppose or go against each other. We're complements. So stop saying we're opposite sex. We're complement sex. We complete each other. We're lock and key. A key and a lock is nothing alike. But they're the only two things that work together to protect something valuable or unlock the mansion with many rooms, as the scripture says, right? These metaphors have weight. They mean something if we could look past them. But we're so traumatically oppressed, we can't even think. Our psychological damage is so pervasive. But we cute though. But we just got the new Mercedes. And we live around white people. And a whole bunch of other stuff, so we must be doing okay, right? 7 out of 10 of us are unmated. And of the rest of us that are mated, the happy marriages last about 6 years. And then go find somebody who's been married over 7 years. And say, if you couldn't have sex with this person, if you didn't have children, would y'all still be best friends? If y'all didn't have money together, hell no, I would be gone. Out of here is what most people will tell you. So what is the solution here? A continuous defining and refining of manhood. What does that? Culturally, it's only one thing that I know that teaches the responsibility of manhood, teaches the responsibility of self-care. Listen, brothers, a lot of y'all talking about the trappings in life you've attained. Those that got a little piece of job or something and make a little bit of money. But you don't even take care of yourself. With all the things we have, we're dying earlier than everybody. Why? Psychological stress. The inability to deal with the stressors that we have. And so we placate them in the most dangerous ways. We're going to cigar Sundays because we are mimicking white men. And listen, brothers, I love a lot of y'all that I respect. When you're smoking a cigar, it's a phallic symbol. You are sucking on somebody's hinenoom. I'm just going to say it. We got to stop with this ridiculous culture stuff. And guess who does it? The men who feel like they're most successful. So, jokers who on the come up, they smoke a blunt. Jokers who feel like they made a little something, they smoke a cigar. You are bringing arsenic acid into your lungs, and it's a phallic symbol. Why are you walking around posing? I see y'all hey, I love y'all. Listen, I'm giving you cultural, historical fact. You bring out any professor, any therapist, any spiritual person, let's debate it. What does smoking a cigar come from? What is the historical context and symbolism of it? It is a phallic symbol that Greek men and Roman men had a hatred for the women. That's why to this day, every disease from leukemia to cancer to AIDS and everything is named after a woman. They hate women. They got this crazy Eve story that don't have nothing to do with black people in their creation story, and are telling women that they are the reason that the world is in sin. You know I'm telling you the truth. And all of y'all women that go listen to these men on Sunday tell y'all that lie, you're just as crazy as these men. But you don't know anything about your culture, so you don't know about Asta and Asar. You don't know your stories. You think this Adam and Eve story is everybody's story. When they document, when they even wrote it and put it in there. Prior to that, what did people know? And you know the story don't make no sense. You knew that when you first read it as a child. Well, Adam, Cain, and Abel, Nod. He went to the land of Nod, and it doesn't make any sense, and you know it. But you're going to listen to it because spiritual knowledge is entertainment now. So they look cute, and they got a suit on, and they can scream to the top of their lungs, and the music enters the room at the certain time, and more importantly than that, everybody else in the room believed this, so it makes sense. When you know it don't make no sense. But smoking a cigar is a phallic symbol, and it is a message to the world that you are a homosexual. That's what it means. You could take it or leave it alone. Now, it is what it is. So keep smoking them. It is what it is. Like, you know, I'm not here. You're definitely not going to stop smoking it because I'm saying that. But this is the point I'm making. Morally and ethically, we're lost. We'll follow anything that seems like it's from the big man, right? Because we follow what they do. Because psychologically, we feel like they're superior to us. And we feel that way because they are using their culture. What are we using? What do we even know about our culture? So we walking around saying, manhood doesn't come with a handbook, stop it. Womanhood doesn't come with a handbook, stop it. Raising children doesn't come with a handbook, stop it. There's no rule book to life, stop it. The Bhagavad Gita, the Pert Imharu, the Quran, the Bible. These are all black African handbooks. Look at them all. What's the first nation in the Bible? Ethiopia. What's the root word of ethics? Ethiopia. What's ethics? Behavior. This is how you should act. And that goes for every spiritual book that's out there. So I'm just telling y'all, we need manhood training. I have a model that is over 10,000 years old that was shared with me through the many beautiful men that helped me on my path. It can help you on your path. We start, on December 20th. It is a 14 weeks rites of passage that is about emotional fitness and social responsibility through the lens of African culture. What is emotional fitness? It is emotional intelligence, emotional literacy, emotional vocabulary, emotional demonstration, emotional flexibility, emotional strength, and emotional endurance. What is social responsibility? It is doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons in all of our relationships. In a Nile Valley cultural dynamic. So you're going to learn all of these symbolisms that I'm talking about and many, many more. And you will see how childish you look amongst the world, Steve Harvey or whoever these Negroes are. And I love all the black men. I don't hate black men at all. I love y'all. And I'm far from perfect, so I'm not attacking you. But what I'm saying is, we die faster than everybody. That's what y'all doing. Y'all sucking on some symbolic penis and getting all that tar in your lungs, and then you'll have the nerve to go on a cancer walk. You're insane. You're ridiculously insane out here in this world. And everybody knows it, including our women who love us to life and to death. And they ain't going to leave us no matter how much jazz they talk, because nobody is made for us like they are, and nobody is made for them like we are. But listen, brother, we got to step up on some kind of grounding. I am one man. I know of probably about 4 groups in the country doing rites of passage. And brothers, I'm telling you, 45, 50, the oldest men that work with me is a triple PhD. He's 71 years old, and he'll be in this group. And the youngest brothers that signed up, a set of twins, are 24 years old. They might be listening right now, because both of these men are members of our Black Love School. But there's all men in between. Last week, we're having an orientation this Wednesday, and it's open to men and women, because I'm going to go over the program, and I want women to understand what men should know when they're dealing with you. Because we talk about the art and science of Black love culture. Let me tell y'all something, women. The art is the feminine, philosophical, and abstract energy of art, of love. The science is the methodological, masculine, or practical step-by-step of love. But it works in the inverse. Men actually need the art, and women need the science, because you don't know what you're doing in relationships. If the relationship has a 7-step process, you go on a date, the next thing you know, you're having sex, you're trying to figure out what's going on, you don't know, you're pregnant, now should we be, you don't understand the steps. You can't come to the rites of passage, but you can come to the orientation, look at the format, and then answer the Q&A. We've had a couple of them. We got the last one in 2 days, Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I'm inviting all of y'all sisters. Come, look at the structure. Let me show you what it is, and let me show you what we'll be going over every week for these 14 weeks. But show it to a man. You know, you can't even, we so insecure, our ego is so unchecked. What Naeem Akbar told me, the men are not even open to anything that doesn't involve sex, sport and play, and food. These are the 3 places where we show our greatest emotion and we get open. You give us a great plate of food, you warm up our bed, and if the Eagles is playing, we'll open up and you'll see the child come out of us. Every other thing, we detach crazy as hell on the game, smoking a cigar or something crazy, or rolling around with some white girl or maybe a man, right? So we are lost, and we're pretending like, oh, you know, I might check it out. You better check mine or somebody's out, because we are dying as a group, and everybody in the world knows it, including us. You get a group of women in a room, they can talk to one another. You get a group of men in a room, if we don't have something external to talk about, like the weather or the game or whatever, we won't even talk. We'll sit in the elevator and won't even say a word to each other. Women will start talking, and before you know it, now women, y'all got y'all issues because the misogyny is so great, y'all don't even like each other. But your nature is so open, you can't help but open up to one another. Men, we are emotionally immature of the highest level. And I'm going to tell you, you can doubt me all you want. If you a man and you under the sound of my voice, put a 1 in the chat if you think our women are crazy. I could put 81s, and I love Black women, right? They nuts. How could a group of women be nuts if the men aren't nuts? How is that possible? It's impossible. So all of the brothers that like to bash the women and all the sisters that like to bash the men, we are a reflection of each other. We have exactly what the other one needs, but we need systems to develop our skills, because we're in an oppressed environment and we're being miseducated spiritually, mentally, culturally, emotionally, sociologically, psychologically, in every way under the sun. We need our handbook, because our culture emanates from our nature. This is the thing about culture. We think it's dress and food and language and all. Those are the vestiges or the things that emanate from culture. But what is culture? It is a group value system that emanates from the nature of the people, and then that manifests through their thought, speech, and action, their symbol recognition and creation, their logic progression, and many other things that then filters down to the way they make dresses or food or whatever, or they do a dance called the Harlem Shake that then they found out was the Boston earthquake in the 50s, that then was the groundquake in Namibia 200 years ago. How do we know that and we never seen each other? Because it's in our nature. That's what a culture is. It's emanating from your nature. So wherever you go and meet black people, they clean their house on every 7 days, every major season. They do these things. You'll see a broom in the kitchen and all these things. You don't understand what these things represent culturally. They're not just things. Did you know in African culture, you used to see this as if you a certain age, I'm 53, you will see this as if you're of a certain age. When you used to come in somebody's house, you got to take your shoes off. And you do that because your walks in the world, you're grounding and you're bringing spirits from all over. The Europeans teach us different. They take their hat off, right? That's their culture. In our life, we say, hey, take your shoes off. But now we don't do that because people's feet stink and it's a different time. But our culture, we're being snatched away from our culture. You go to a lot of indigenous cultures, as soon as you open the door, you will see the shoe rack and you got to take your shoes off before you come in there. But the point I was making about the shoes is not that. You know, my great-grandmother, who I was blessed to have till I was 20 years old, she died a couple of weeks after my grandfather, Mr. Horace Phelps, my father, Rodell Evans, and my great-grandmother, Esther Chambers, all died 7 weeks in a 7-week period. You know, they say death comes in threes, right? They all died at the same time. Devastated our family. And then many years later, we had 3 more deaths. So they do come like that a lot of times, right? But my great-grandmother taught me something that I later learned from Dr. Africa when I was in initiation. She said that, you know, when she was growing up in the South, when you go to bed, you can't leave your shoes facing outward. You have to turn your shoes underneath the bed. Now, you could put a 1 in the chat if you're old enough to remember old folks telling you that. Well, when I began to study with Dr. Africa many years after she passed away, what he explained to me is the reason we did that is because the soul travels at night. And in the dream state, the soul is not aware a lot of times that it's dreaming. So if it comes up and leaves the body, it can get into those shoes and walk away. And so because the Africans knew that this was, you know, something we didn't want, we would turn the shoes inward so that when the soul would arise in that detached conscience, this would be communication to the soul that, hey, you're dreaming. This is not real, what you're experiencing. Don't you get your ass up and walk too far away from this body that you're connected to, because when you see these shoes turn inward, this is the way for you to know that you are connected. I think that's amazing. I think that is deep psychological symbology and a way to talk to your inner self in a symbolic way, right? But we see these things, and listen, if you're younger, you don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, you probably didn't even get that. But willfully, you know, praising God that somebody is my age and understands what I'm talking about here, because we're losing our traditions. And so it's that and many, many other things. We marry couples, why we jump the broom, and many, many other things. That doesn't come from enslavement, like a lot of people misthink that we started doing that because of enslavement. We brought that here because it represented what you do, and we did it in a wedding. You don't just jump the broom. the man and the woman take their shoes off and they sweep the aisle that they walk down, because it represents that the paths that we brought together, now that all of the isfit or wrong is cleared away, and this is a new path, and we jump into a new life together. And we don't just step into it, we jump into it with purpose and intention and passion. So you could step over the broom, but it's the jump that represents the level of commitment. Hey, y'all, we lost. And it's time to stop pretending that we lost. I have one more orientation. The link is in this description. We are meeting this Wednesday, the day after tomorrow at 7 p.m. for an hour or so. I'm going to show y'all the whole rites of passage and what you're going to learn if you go. And then next Wednesday, we start. And we will go for 14 weeks. And right somewhere around the 10th week, my wife will pick up with her rites of passage that deals with the cultural refinement of women, lightening the heart, and cultural femininity. Because let me tell y'all, beautiful sisters, this. Y'all the most masculine group of women on the earth. And you need femininity. You need a cultural femininity. You're walking around here toting your degrees and your other stuff and all this masculine energy, and then you cannot figure out why no man can't deal with you. We are mutually broken in different ways, but we're not defeated. And this is our time to rise. And one of the things that's going to be the citadel of our rise is us reestablishing our cultural way, a rites of passage that is perpetual. So every 7 years minimum, up to the age of 70, you should be going through a rites of passage led by, if you're a man, a group of men. If you're a woman going from femalehood into girlhood, you should have a group of women that are at least 7 to 14 years older than you. If you're a male going to boyhood into manhood, you should have a group of men that are at least 7 to 14 years older than you, or the information being. And if you are a couple going from mating, dating, and into nationhood building, you should have a group of couples. That's black culture. This other stuff y'all doing is chocolate covered white man. I'm telling you, you could take it or leave it alone. You can suck it on your cigar or whatever else crazy nonsense you're into that think you represent something of a higher consciousness. That stuff is not what our mother, father, God put into us. So we need to wake up. We need to refine ourselves. Black men, we got to love ourselves better than we doing, baby. We off, man. And we out of here. Some of y'all in y'all 50s failing to launch. You're almost dead, bro. Wake up. And I'm not saying, hey, I could be out of here tomorrow. I'm not projecting some perfection to you. I'm accepting the truth and the reality of our situation. And I, for one, am pledging my life to do something about it. And so I'm offering service to the collective group. And I get something from it when I do it, but I'm offering a service to the collective group. And we all should be bringing our gifts to the table and offering something to the collective group. And we can 180 our position overnight. But we sitting back, we don't know how to make a decision. We indecisive, we emotionally stuck. We talking that cat in the hat emotions. Most men have 4 emotional words: sad, mad, glad. They can't even have an emotional conversation. And then they'll walk around and say, take emotions out of it, when everything in life is emotional. And I asked them, when you having sex, do you take emotional out of it? When you have an erection, is it emotion in that? Or is that intellectual? When you eating a good plate of food, is that emotional? Or is that, what is that? So why when it comes to talking to your wife or children, you want to take emotion out of it? No, we want to have balance. We don't want to take emotion out. We want to balance emotion with rationale and logic. Because at the end of this life, your feelings are what matter. And I've been at the deathbed of a lot of men. I've actually performed weddings naming ceremonies, birthings, and funerals. I've done a funeral for a young man, a newborn, a year before my son would then go ahead and make his transition. And I did a funeral for a man that was older than me, with his family present and all of his community and a bunch of people. Many of you who know me well might have been at that funeral. And so as a spiritual initiate and a cultural initiate, I'm qualified to do these things. But I'm just telling you, y'all, men, you know, remember that song, if you of a certain age, the whole world's laughing at you? We're stuck in perpetual adolescence. We get emotional about the game. We get emotional about sex. We get emotional about food, sport, and play. All of the other aspects of life, and there's many others, we quiet as a church mouse. And it's got to stop if we want to rise. So I love y'all dearly. I appreciate y'all listening to me. The link for the the link for the Q&A is in this description. You can come whether you're man or woman, because women, I want you to understand what the men you're dealing with are supposed to have proficiency with. And not for you to walk around with some kind of list and be trying to, you need some work for real. Y'all are the most aggressive women on the planet. And a lot of us men that are heterosexual, as we should be in our nature, don't want to be in a relationship with a female man. So you're unattractive. So you need rites of passage too. You talk too much, you're boisterous, and you're arrogant and egotistical, just like we are. And so we can't get away from this, black people. We are each other, and we're both in a condition that needs some intervention. The AKOMA King 14-week rites of passage of social responsibility and emotional fitness for scholars, lovers, warriors, and kings is coming. It may be for some of you. It may be not. I want all of you to take a look at it, because I want you to understand what's out here. As I said, I know of about 4 or 5. I just learned somebody inboxed me because I've been promoting, and I will be promoting every day. I'll be coming on doing videos about various different things. But tonight I wanted to say that adult sons got daddy issues. We talk about women with daddy issues all the time. Oh, she got daddy issues. She got daddy issues. Listen, nobody has more daddy issues than black men, because the greatest issue of us understanding our identity, not just theoretically, but in our ability to share, model, demonstrate, and get help in manhood, is missing, even for the brothers who have their fathers and love their fathers dearly, as I did until my father passed away. I would not have said that I was a man that grew up without his father. And in fact, I grew up in a community where all the black kids had their fathers. I grew up in a little suburb in Ewing back in the 70s. Everybody had their father. I have one friend that didn't live, out of about 300 of us, that did not live with his mother and father. He lived with his grandmother. Every single other one of us had a 2-parent home, and it was far from perfection. But when I compare and contrast it with men who didn't have fathers, I can tell them instantly, even to this day, when I meet them and I watch them interact with other men and women, it's ego driven, even if it's passively aggressively ego driven. Because what's the function of the ego? It protects an insecurity. What's the presence of insecurity? You don't have proper identity. Why not? Because you don't have modeling. Why not? Because daddy wasn't home. Daddy wasn't there. And other men, yeah, you could say, well, I modeled Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or whoever. You don't know them intimately. They wasn't with you washing the dishes or washing your laundry or showing you all the things. And I'm not talking about physical things, so don't jump on here and say, my uncle taught me how to build the engine or drive a car. I'm not talking about that, Negro. I'm talking about who showed you the emotional and psychological disposition of manhood. Who showed you what a man, a fair, balanced, emotionally secure man looks like loving a woman at 5 years, at 10 years, at 15 years, at 20 years, at 25 years, at 30 years, at 35 years, at 40 years, at 45, at 50 years. Who is that man? Who is that group of men? The reality is, if you were born after the 50s, you may have one or two, but you don't have a group, because we're under a system that has disenfranchised and destabilized and destroyed the black family that was since the 60s. So we are 60, 70 years from that in 2023 of their calendar year. This ain't our calendar year, but we going by it because we're in this nation. We're in 62, 63. That's one of our calendar years, but there's many others. But the point I'm saying is this: black men, we lost. Black women, we lost. Stop pretending we ain't. You can get 1,000 degrees. You can make 6 figures or whatever you think. It means some money. 6 figures is $100,000. I've made it. It ain't a lot of money. I'm in more debt. I didn't see. You know what it amounts to? About $5,000 every 2 weeks. Just about. If you got your bills is $7,000 in your home, most of us average total bills with mortgage and all of that stuff somewhere between 4 and 7. Phones and all the bills you got, cars and all of that stuff, insurances, all that. You somewhere in between 4 and 7 average. That means you got a big ass $3,000 at the end of the month to pay off all the debt you in, and maybe go to Great Adventure and take a couple family vacations and go out to dinner and buy some shoes or something. Middle class in America starts at $250,000, and many of us don't make that. So this ain't about money. Although money is important, it's not all that, but it has value. Well, money don't have value, but I will say this: offering service has value. So Jiva, Dr. Jiva, I see your question. When will the women's rights of passion start? Nawasha is getting ready to do a video herself, and she told me tonight that we've gotten so much inquiry because of me starting AKOMA King. She might start AKOMA Queen earlier than she was expecting to. But the focus of this is, like I said, cultural femininity, energetic vibration, and lightening the heart. A lot of women, y'all get dressed up, you're cute and all of that, you're single. The vibration you give off is not even attractive to men. You're not feminine. And it's not some diss to you. You've been conditioned where you've had to do things that are outside your nature. And so just like we are, you are very unnatural. It doesn't matter how cute you are, if you got a BBL or whatever. You're unnatural as a woman. And what is the standard? Go around the world and look at civilized culture women and look at black women in the Western world. It is a huge difference. You know where you could go? I'm in New Jersey, so I'm just giving you a reference. You got this somewhere around you, wherever you live. For people that's in New Jersey, go up the street to like West Windsor, somewhere like that, and go into the Indian communities, where you're going to see a group of black people who swear to God that they ain't black. But go into those communities, right? And look at the refinement of those women. Look at how they act socially. Look at you might see them, because they moving into every community. You might see them walking around. You'll see the dude walking around in the mall. The woman will be with her mom and her grandmom walking around. They in full saris, you know. This is one of the reasons why we say forgive me when we make a mistake, or please forgive me or I restore my eye. And we don't say sorry. Sorry is an Indian dress, right? So words are very important. They're attached to psychology and consciousness. That's why we're so bullish about words and terms. You will always hear us talking about that. But in any event, you see these women, they're refined, their energy in public. When you see Asian women that are here, not these crazy ass ones that been here for a long time, they so psycho and aggressive. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the sisters who are fresh from in their culture, right? It is a elegance and a refinement. They're not better than black women. Please don't understand that I'm saying that. However, they're more natural than black women. And that may be offensive to some of you. And guess what? It's the truth. So, I'm on here talking about all the issues that black men have. And if somebody can say that what I'm saying is a lie, please step forward. I will take this video down. If you can prove to me that I'm lying about something that I'm saying, I will take this video down and erase it and just, remove it from perpetuity. But what I'm saying is the truth. And for some of you, it may be harmful to hear, but it is what it is, y'all. We jacked up out here. And you think our children don't know it? I am a therapist. I talk to children. And I hear what they think about their parents. I talk to my own children. And 2 of them is hardly even talking to me. So, again, I'm not even saying something that I'm not experiencing personally. I'm not even on that. I'm saying we, us. I'm not saying you and not me. I'm saying we, us as a group, are dealing with these things. And you know that what I'm telling you is the truth. So I'm inviting you to come out to this orientation. It will be Wednesday, USA Eastern Time, because we have some people inquiring from out of the country. 7 p.m., Eastern Time, on Wednesday, the 13th, will be the last orientation. We will begin the following Wednesday, December 20th, which is one day in front of my dad's birthday. His birthday is the first day of winter. And we will go past and through my mother's birthday, which is the first day of spring, March 21st. So we'll go like 2 weeks past her birthday to the end of March, essentially beginning of April. A 14-week program of emotional fitness and social responsibility. If there's a black man, you don't got to come, but if there's a black man who feels like they don't need that, I would like to have a conversation with you. You don't have to come to my rites of passage. If you don't feel inspired or connected, I would rather you not come, because it's a safe space for men to heal, be themselves, unfurl, learn, share, contribute, and get some help. If you ain't in that spirit and your ego is out of control, or you don't think I'm qualified, I'm going to tell you about my academic, clinical, and cultural credentials. I'm going to tell you about my 6, 7 teachers, and I'm going to show you a framework that is thousands of years old. It's older than anything right now that you got your hands on, for sure, about how you take males from malehood, boyhood, and into manhood. If it's something that you think has value for your life, you're welcome to join us. Otherwise, you could check it out. And hey, you could log it in your memory bank. It'll at least be an hour well spent in terms of information. It won't be the regular stuff that you ain't gonna get nothing from watching the game. And I'm not against watching the game. I love the NBA and I watch occasionally the NFL, but I'm not against the sport and play, but it's got to be balanced. And I'm saying the 80-20 balance. We look at these people in the world and all the war that is about to jump off, and the whole world is looking to their men to find solutions to this. And we saying, did you see that move that LeBron did? Like, we are the ones who are stuck in adolescence. And I know it can sound away, brothers, but it's just the truth, man. It's just the truth. I love y'all so much. We are children before the world. And you know it's the truth. You know it's the truth. So please, Please take care of yourself, black men. Emotionally, psychologically. Stop saying take emotion out of it. That is unnatural. It is impossible. No man can do that. And we shouldn't even want to or aspire to do it. Let's wake up. Be men for ourselves first, for our women second, for our children third, for humanity fourth. The world is calling you, black man. So that's my offering. I appreciate your time. And if I've offended anybody, forgive me. I'm coming as a man of purpose. I'm coming as a man of principle. And of course, I'm a man of passion. Your brother, your servant, Mansho Afi Odingmo Maridu, offering AKOMA Kings, a 14-week rites of passage that is an exploration into emotional fitness and social responsibility for the scholar, lover, warrior, and king. Let's go, black men. Let's step up. I'll see y'all tomorrow with another one. Ni AKOMA.